What do the Velvet Underground, the Cars, and Talking Heads all have in common? Probably a lot of things, but for the sake of this intro, what they have in common is a little proto-punk group known as the Modern Lovers. The original band lineup was fronted by Jonathan Richman and included drummer David Robinson, who would later go on to join the Cars, and keyboardist Jerry Harrison, who would later become a part of Talking Heads. In 1972, the Modern Lovers held two demo sessions, the first of which was produced by John Cale, a founding member of the Velvet Underground. During these demo sessions, the band recorded several songs that would eventually receive critical acclaim, but that wouldn't happen until 1976, 2 years after the band officially broke up. Critic Ira Robbins hailed the Modern Lovers' eponymous album as, quote, one of the truly great art rock albums of all time, quote. That's end quote. That's what you say at the end of quote, not quote again. And the songs went on to influence several key punk rock acts, including the Sex Pistols, who covered the song Roadrunner on their album The Great Rock and Roll Swindle. Punk rockers weren't the only ones who took note of the Modern Lovers' sound. One of the most influential musicians of the 20th century, David Bowie, took a liking to the band so much that he released a cover of one of their other hit songs. Originally intended for the Pinups 2 project, intended as a sequel to his 1973 covers album Pinups, this song, along with George Harrison's Try Some Buy Some, was added on to his 2003 album Reality. That's right, we're starting our month-long celebration of David Bowie by talking about the Modern Lovers' Pablo Picasso on Cover Bowie.
Picasso, you could walk down your street, girls could not resist the stare, and so Pablo.
That's right. It's Cover Bowie, the only podcast that talks about famous songs and their many cover versions, compares them against one another to find out if any version is good as the David Bowie one. I'm your host, as always, Jake Cressy, joined by my big log of a co-host,
Alex Mildenberger.
Alex Mildenberger.
Yep.
How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. I'm lying down. I'm on fire. I'm a log.
You are lying down on fire. You're a log. Somebody's got a camera on you.
I make graphs with large ranges in higher values become linear.
I'm logarithm.
A log.
You are a log, Alex. Alex! I was gonna call it Cover Me Pinups, but I thought that was a hat on a hat. Like our picture's already
Picture is already
pinups.
It all works. It's all good.
It's all good. Cover Bowie. Like Bowie and me kind of like rhyme, right?
Bowie
So I think like that's
and me. It ends in the same like vowel sound.
Yeah.
Even though there's like several different ways you could say Bowie that I've heard people say Bowie, it all ends in E.
That's right. Alex, it's January.
Sure is.
Don't let anyone tell you different. It is January, and
I'm
we're
glad
talking
all
about
our
David
problems
Bowie.
are gone now that it's no longer 2020.
Hell yeah,
That
dude.
was a
We're
wild
all
ride.
vaccinated. It was a wild ride. We're out. We're done. We're having fun in the sun. 'Cause
Impressive
it's
that
summer
global
now, baby.
temperatures have cooled by so much in the last week.
Yeah. It's been pretty wild. Alex, it's January. We're talking about David Bowie because David Bowie was born in January. Did you know that, Alex?
I did know that.
You knew that.
Because I remember he died like 2 days after his birthday or something like that.
Yeah, it was. Let's see here.
Which is when
so
he
was
released
born on
Black Star
yeah,
back in the day.
born on January 8th, died on January 10th.
Yeah.
Of course, another famous musician born on January 8th, Elvis Presley.
I do
So,
recall.
because
I think
because
my
we,
sister has
yeah.
several friends who have that birthday as well.
Is your sister friends with David Bowie and Elvis Presley?
I mean,
No
they
one
are both
else?
still alive, so yes.
Yes, naturally. Excellent. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about David Bowie stuff all month. We're probably the format we've loosely discussed is 2 songs that David Bowie has covered, and then 2 David Bowie originals. We're gonna talk about what those are yet. We don't know, except for this week. We're talking about Pablo Picasso, a song that I honestly thought was a David Bowie cover until I stumbled upon the original on Spotify.
Yeah, I think I only know it's a cover because you told me it was. So
Yeah, that sounds about right.
although, admittedly, I haven't listened to Reality that much compared to a lot of other David Bowie albums. So
Yeah, I
it
would
wasn't
say
a
it's
song
not
I thought about a lot.
Right, fair enough. Not a high priority Bowie album by any means. Still a good one if you ask me, but
I mean, I like most Bowie albums. I think there's a lot of good stuff on like Heathen, which is right before this.
oh yeah.
So
I like
worth
Heathen
checking
too.
out.
Yeah, it's we're diehard Bowie fans though, so we'll probably any Bowie album. You're like, should I listen to this? I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah.
Should I listen to Tonight? I'm like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, listen to Tonight. Heaven 87 and Cry. I actually don't remember which album that's on.
That's off. Never
Does it
let
Never
me
Let
down.
Me Down? Ah!
Yeah, Tonight has more like island vibes to it. It's like it's approaching reggae.
I gotta check those out a little bit more intensely at some point.
There's some gold in there.
I
It's
mean-
not all bad.
Yeah. They're not separate in my mind, and they will be one day.
Oh, you'll get it. You'll figure it out. My favorite is always the Glass Spider song from Never Let Me Down.
Oh, yes,
Because it opens up with like a minute and a half of just David Bowie reading poetry about a fictional breed of spider.
It's almost, there's a Black Widow song by Alice Cooper, which is kind of
Oh,
like it
yeah.
also starts with a spoken
Also
word
has
intro.
that. Yeah.
Anyway, that's something.
Good note. So you didn't think much about Pablo Picasso. Alex, did you do any research on the Modern Lovers? There's not too much to know about
Yeah,
them.
they weren't around for very long. You kind of covered, like, they have several members who went on to be part of large groups or contribute to more famous groups. The lead singer / like frontman guy,
Jonathan Richman.
Jonathan Richman has been like a solo artist, I think, mostly since then, and
Yeah,
partially
fairly-
toured as the Modern
Yeah.
Lovers, I think, or Jonathan Richman.
Yeah, so we
and the
had
Modern
Jonathan
Lovers.
Richman and the Modern Lovers, which is a different band. I'd be curious to hear it. Apparently, they have a much softer sound than what we hear on this album, which has been called proto-punk, and obviously has a lot of like Velvet Underground influence. I've looked at some YouTube comments. People are like, "Oh, it sounds like the Doors, kind of. It sounds like this band a bit." It's like, yeah, it's that early rock and roll that was like art rock, I guess, is what you would call it.
Yeah, it's definitely. Or I mean, I listened to a little bit of his stuff, just because like it came up on Spotify after this playlist ended, and I forgot to
course.
say loop. And it's a lot more like folky, like acoustic guitar. But it's still like
Yeah, I read he actually
just
does
quite
that.
different.
He plays exclusively in acoustic now to protect his ears.
yeah. I don't blame that. I don't blame him for that. I
That's
am
fair.
always worried about my ears getting damaged. Like
Yeah.
that's like a big fear of mine is hearing damage.
Yeah, I unfortunately was not concerned about that for a good deal of my teenage years, and it's not like I'm not awful at hearing, but I could be better.
Yeah.
I've got a bit like mild tinnitus, and that is upsetting to me
I
now.
think-
But of course,
Sometimes, in the middle of the night, you start hearing the high pitched sounds, and you're like, is that tonight? And then you don't hear it the next. So I think it gets better and worse, and I don't know. what
yeah, I
causes
think it
but
comes and goes.
yeah,
Now these days, yeah, I do try to look after my hearing. All that to say,
Yeah.
there's not too much to say about the Modern Lovers.
yeah,
Another fun like piece of just music history. I get sort of the same idea I get of that. Who is that group? They did a cover of Raspberry Beret. It's a bunch of famous artists. Is it?
Oh,
Raspberry Beret they did a
yeah.
cover
It
of?
was
Yeah.
the Hindu Love Gods.
Hindu Love Gods. Yeah. For some reason I get that kind of vibe, but instead of being famous and getting together,
It's kind of the
it was,
opposite. It's
the
not
opposite.
just. It's not just. It's like most of REM and Warren Zevon is who the Hindu Love Gods are. So like they were
Yeah.
already successful and they just like fucked around and at some point it got released.
Exactly. And this is the opposite, where they were not
Yeah.
successful. They did this, moved on to bigger things, then this was released.
Yeah. But also, this was produced by John Cale of
That's right.
formerly at that point of the Velvet Underground, and you can hear his influence mostly on early Velvet Underground because that's when he was actually in the band. So like songs like the Black Angels Death Song, where you
Mm.
get that like constant viola. Apparently it is. I looked that up. I thought it was violin, but apparently it's a viola. That's him
Mhm.
playing. And like some of the dronier, I think like in Heroin there's a big drone. Like that's kind of his influence. So that's what he sort of
Okay.
brings to the Velvet Underground, and you don't get that if you look at like Sweet Jane, for example. Like that's not present because he wasn't in the band anymore.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm looking at that now. But wasn't he also the one who did like the final Velvet Underground album?
I don't know.
That one that's a piece of shit and nobody acknowledges it.
I think at that point the entire band or most of the band had gone wasn't part of it. It's like
Yeah,
a Starship Airplane
Squeeze.
situation.
Features no members of the.
Starship.
Oh no, it's Doug Yule. Doug Yule is the
Okay.
member who is okay. Yeah, who actually the replacement for John Cale. That's maybe why I had it fucked up. So yeah, John Cale's all good. All right, I was gonna give him shit for being on the worst Velvet Underground album of all time, but no, he was just there for the cream of the crop. Way to go, John Cale.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you definitely get that early Velvet Underground sound on this. And of course, we're going to talk about John Cale's version because he actually has the first released version of this song. With that, let's get right into this. Let's start talking lyrics, Alex, because it's pretty simple.
Yeah, it is. There's actually a fair amount of words that they say, but the actual content, I mean, they call it proto-punk. It's kind of got that attitude to it, and it's mostly this story just about, or not even really a story. It's just a description of like some things that might happen to Pablo Picasso.
It's like a fun fact.
Yeah.
Stretched out into a song.
I did look up Pablo Picasso for the purposes of this, and I didn't know much about him other than that he did some art. I know that he's a cubist, or he was in his later years, but he was also considered quite a womanizer. He was married twice, and he usually had a mistress sort of on the side, so he was always going. And then there was some articles that said he what is it? How Picasso bled the women in his life for art is the title of this article. So it's like he was not necessarily very nice.
Right. I believe one of his wives did release a tell-all sort of book or biography in which she was like, yeah, Pablo Picasso was an asshole. Probably not in those exact words. I don't think she would have ever heard this song by the Modern Lovers.
I mean, he was never called an asshole, so she couldn't have called him an asshole.
Yeah, she couldn't have called him that. It's impossible. Yeah. Married twice, 4 children amongst 3 different women.
Yeah, he was all over the place.
He was all over the place. Well, and with that, let's get into these lyrics, which talk of that womanizing. Well, some people try to pick up girls and get called assholes. This never happened to Pablo Picasso. He could walk down your street and girls could not resist his stare. So Pablo Picasso was never called an asshole.
Never called an asshole. Yes, I think in addition to this being just like fun fact about Pablo Picasso, women seem to be into him. It's probably also, and maybe this is just me, playing with just this general idea of like an artist as womanizer sort of thing. Like artists who use their, I guess you'd say, position, even though it's not an official, like authoritative position,
right,
as sort of a way to meet women. It's sort of a cliche of like women like artists. I was always sort of given that idea growing up.
Yeah, and yeah, so he had some charm, presumably because he was an artist. Because we'll later talk about like his height, which of course ladies are all about the height. He's a very short man and was still picking up loads of ladies.
Right.
Interesting thing to note is that he could walk down your street. So there's, and then later he'll say down their street. It's never just the street. The street is never neutral.
The street belongs to someone?
Yeah, so like he could walk down your street. Pablo Picasso can come into your neighborhood where you should technically be in power.
Right.
And, feel most comfortable. And he can upset the status quo and steal your women.
Because he can do whatever he wants, apparently.
Yeah. That brings us to verse 2 here, if it can be called that. It is a stanza 2.
That's
maybe.
what I call it.
The girls would turn the color of the avocado when he would drive down their street in his Eldorado. And then again, he could walk down your street and girls could not resist his stare. Pablo Picasso never got called an asshole. Not like you. All right.
Yeah, so, okay. Turning green.
Mm-hmm.
You can turn green with envy.
Yes.
You can turn green because you feel sick.
Yes.
What does this mean?
Now here's what I grasped from Genius. Genius mentions this on both these lyrics and the David Bowie lyrics. Apparently, Pablo Picasso often painted women green
Ah, I see.
in his paintings.
Okay.
So it's possibly a reference to that. I also went the extra step here. And the avocado is an Aztec symbol of love. And in I guess in dream association culture, the avocado is associated with lust and love.
So he's
So,
just making them
yeah,
lustful.
exactly. So between all that, it's either just, hey, they become one of his girls when they see him because he paints women
He just
green.
has
So
this
when
magnetism.
this magnetism, and then of course these avocado ones, which might just be coincidental, but hey, lust and love seems to fit right in.
Yeah, I mean, it works with the song.
Yeah. But yeah, you definitely think of envy first.
Yeah, that's my first thought. And like, maybe that works too because they're envious of his ability or something. So they're
Right, and can
interested
we maybe
in.
assume that there is already a woman in his El Dorado?
Oh, we probably can.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, he's driving down the street in his Eldorado, which is a Cadillac. It's a
Yeah.
fancy car. He's also Spanish. Does that mean anything? Because Eldorado is in Spanish? Probably not. But
Yeah, maybe.
it's just
And
just a
also,
model of car.
El Dorado means the gilded/golden one. So he's driving a fancy car. And
So
basically,
he's
it's a
number one.
fancy car. He's a fancy Spaniard. He's in a fancy Spanish named car.
Probably with another woman. Yeah. Yeah. And all
Yeah,
the women
and
are
then-
envious of that woman because they want to be with Pablo Picasso.
That's right. And then we get the dunk on you, the listener.
Oh, yes.
Where Pablo Picasso is never called an asshole. Not like you.
You can't do the things Pablo Picasso does. He is
Yeah.
Pablo Picasso. You would get called an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they're saying he's an asshole, but he can do it because of his status, basically.
Yeah. And then we move on to, well, he was only 5'3", but girls could not resist his stare. Pablo Picasso never got called an asshole, not in New York.
Yes, I don't really know what Pablo Picasso's affiliation with New York is, although I will say that looking up some of his art, a lot of it is in New York on display, like in museums.
Yeah, well, maybe in the same way that your street is your territory, perhaps we can imply that New York is Pablo Picasso's.
I don't know. Did he live there?
I imagine he probably spent some time there.
He
I know
must
he
have.
spent
New
some
York,
time
Paris.
in Paris, because
All the big
that will
ones.
come up in a later one.
Oh, wow.
He spent most of his adult life in France.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I always kind of assumed he was French, but like Pablo,
We have on this show before
we have.
talked
Like,
about
where's he from? And then we look him up. We're like, oh yeah, Spain. That makes sense.
Yeah, the Greta was asked me. She's like, "Where is Pablo Picasso from?" I was like, "I think he's Italian." And I looked at him. I was like, "Spanish." I'm like, "Fuck, I've done exactly this before."
You know, Europe somewhere.
Somewhere.
It's all the same, right?
But yes, he is Spanish, and then the so let's turn to genius here, as we are wont to do, and sometimes. It says that Jonathan Richman spent a lot of time in New York, especially at Andy Warhol's factory.
That makes sense.
They say the point here is that New York is a place where the kind of idolatry of famous artists that this song talks about is common.
So the people in New York would sort of deify Pablo Picasso.
Yeah, so perhaps that is an acceptable enough answer.
This is the other thing. It says he's only 5'3". So there's a note. I think it's in the David Bowie one on that, and it says like Google says he was actually 5'4", which like I mean I'm sure he's not exactly either of those, but
IMDb says he's 5'5".
well, and then like the comment on that says like this song was written in 1972, which is before he died, so maybe he grew an inch after the song was written. Like, okay, but he was also old, so like maybe he shrunk. Like that seems
Yeah.
like more likely, right? And
Nonetheless,
also,
like,
I don't know.
like the range of 5'3" to 5'5" is still in the zone of not tall.
Yeah,
That's
like
just
it
the real
doesn't change
point here.
the point of the line, and also, I'm sure there were times where he slouched maybe and was 5'3", right? Like,
Yeah, we don't know what his natural stature was like.
so, anyway,
Yeah,
He
that is
was
a
not
fun.
very tall, is the point. He's not tall,
Well,
but it didn't matter.
exactly. Yeah, he was not very tall, but girls could not resist his stare. You don't even need the actual
Yeah.
numbers in there to make it work.
Just adds a bit of flavor because you can be like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, 5'3". That's on the short side.
Yeah. Now we come to the part of the lyrics that were, of course, completely foreign to you and me, having only listened to the Bowie version, where
Yes.
this is not present. He says,
There's a
"Oh
lot
well,
of
be
words that are
yes,
hard
be
to
not
understand.
schmuck,
Sorry.
be not obnoxious, be not bell-bottom bummer or asshole. Remember the story of Pablo Picasso. He could walk down your street, girls could not resist his stare. Pablo Picasso was never called an asshole. All right, this is it."
Be not schmuck, be not obnoxious, be not bell-bottom bummer or asshole.
Remember this? It's like a sort of nursery rhyme moral.
Yeah, it sounds like a fable there. Like,
Yeah.
be a nice person and remember the story of Pablo Picasso. And yeah, I don't know if it's supposed to be like ironic because it's kind of being like, hey, don't be an asshole. Even though Pablo Picasso was, but he was never called, like he was never acknowledged as such necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm not sure.
So in a 1980 interview, Jonathan Richman stated that the song was inspired by his own adolescent self-consciousness with women, which I don't know if that helps us a little here. Maybe his idea is that you cannot do any of these things unless you are
Oh, I
of
see.
a similar cut of cloth as Pablo Picasso.
Yeah, you're
Once
not
you
Pablo
achieve,
Picasso, so you can't do it.
yeah, remember the story. So if you can one day say confidently that you are Pablo Picasso, whether in the literal or figurative sense, then
Then go right ahead, do whatever.
go right ahead.
But yeah, I mean that makes sense. Like unless you're actual king shit, people are gonna call you out on it.
Mm-hmm.
So like, so don't do it. Kind of.
Yeah. And so maybe this speaks to his struggle where he's like, well, how do I get to become Pablo Picasso just to engage in a little romance?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know if that's necessary. Like I don't think it's necessarily saying like, so your goal is to become Pablo Picasso so you can be an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
It's just saying like, what do you think you're fucking Pablo Picasso? Like,
Yeah.
like, get over yourself and be a decent person.
Yeah, I suppose so. It's just like don't be this dumb shit. You're not Pablo Picasso. And then yeah, we just get a repeat of the final. Some people try to pick up girls, and then the final line is never finished. Pablo Picasso was never called an asshole. ...
And I see there's one of the notes on also on Genius is just a bunch of images of like young pretty women.
Oh
with
yeah,
Pablo
if you look on
Picasso.
the girls could not resist his stare, it's literally like women looking at Pablo Picasso as he looks at them.
Yeah. Anyway, those are the lyrics.
Those are the lyrics.
That's the song.
That's the song.
It's
Let's
about
talk
Pablo
about the
Picasso,
noises.
but it's also about being an insecure person, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's
Being
also
an
about
asshole.
not being an asshole. And it's also about
Yeah.
being an asshole.
It's one of those songs where it's written loosely enough you kind of take what you can get from it.
Yeah.
With that, let's talk about these noises, Alex.
Yeah, what noises are going on? It kind of fades in. It was sort of it was a demo, right? That they,
Yeah,
like,
so and I
released,
don't think they
basically?
did too much like I don't think they ever did another take of it. I think they took the demos and did whatever mastering and producing effects they could do to them and shot them out.
Yeah, so it's pretty simple, at least like in that it sort of repeats itself a lot.
Oh yeah, it's a very steady rhythm. It's worth noting that apparently the piano that's being like repetitively hammered is actually played by John Cale on this.
John Cale himself.
Mm-hmm.
And it does have a Velvet Underground kind of sound. Like I think, especially in the guitar, kind of has a
Yeah.
thin sound to it. That's not like really distorted or anything, and it's just kind of
Yeah.
particularly at the beginning, just like playing regular, like dan 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 dan, and like repeated chord, or maybe even a single note.
And yeah, the
Probably
just like the noodling that the guitar does throughout the song is very loose. Like it kind of just comes in when it pleases, does a bit of like a repeated chord, leaves for a bit, comes back, changes things up. Like it's very well, everything else here is quite locked in. Like the bass the whole time is dun 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 dun. Piano's just hammering those notes.
Yeah, and
Drums are
it's
very
same
simple.
thing, like simple chords on the piano, bum 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 bum, and like it'll change it up a little bit, but just like change to a different chord
Mm-hmm.
for a bit.
So yeah, your biggest variations come on that guitar.
And that's like, well, at the beginning it's not even that much. It'll be like play two of those like power chords, and it'll ring
Yeah.
for a bit, but then the rest is just keep playing consistently. Drums are just like
Mm-hmm.
pretty standard 4/4 rock beat.
Mm-hmm. Then we come to the singing. Which is really it's
Yeah.
just talk singing.
Yeah, very, very talky, but also sort of in that kind of. I mean, it's called proto-punk for a reason. Um, there's that sort of like defiant sound to it, if that makes sense, that you would get from this sort of school of music,
Yeah.
where it's sort of um, Velvet Underground influenced.
Mm-hmm. And so like a good chunk of this song from about a minute 36 to I think the 3 minute mark is just instrumentals, like a lot of guitar soloing.
Yeah, it's that. But it's not like it goes crazy or anything. Like it's a guitar solo, but it's really just very repetitive.
Yeah, the craziness comes from the tone, which is quite rough. Or
Yeah, and
coarse.
they do add in, I guess, like it gets more distorted because it's not like the guitar at the beginning, but
Yeah.
they're not like shredding, and maybe they wouldn't at this point in time anyway. Maybe shredding hadn't been invented yet. I don't know.
I don't know. You get a little shredding on
It
the
probably has
first like Velvet Underground album.
I guess.
But yeah, it's much looser than your modern day shredding. It's more meant to be like just discordant rather than I guess impressive.
Yeah, it's not like that sort of like technique showcase. It's just
Mm-hmm.
playing some notes that almost seem like they're playing around with like the timing too. They're not really sticking with that all that much. Just playing around basically. And then we don't
Yeah.
get to the next verse until like close to 3 minutes.
Yeah. Like, it's like
there's also right after 2
2:57.
minutes. There's like this piano glissando.
Yeah,
It's
that
not
piano
that.
comes in.
It's not that.
I noted
important,
that
but
too,
it's kinda
so
cool.
it's clearly of some importance.
And there's two guitars too, so they're sort of like playing around in between each other.
Yeah.
By the time we get to this next verse, though, like the piano is like really, really hitting those chords. Like you're really banging away at that piano.
Yeah, we certainly get an increase in like the energy.
Yeah, there's kind of like there's like a physicality to it. Even like the end of the guitar solo thing is like that sort of like fast strumming on single notes kind of thing, or just a few
Yeah.
strings. So you get that like get a lot of that kind of stuff. So you really get that sort of like adding just that sort of like pushing into the notes.
Mm-hmm. And then we get a false ending where the instruments drop around 3:38.
Oh, that's true. That's true. It pretends, and then it comes back in and does a little bit more like guitar soloing.
Yeah, and then we fade out on the guitar soloing after a bit.
And that's like pretty much it.
That's it.
He's kind of Jonathan Richman's kind of like making some sounds.
Yeah, bit of ad-libbing some.
But yeah, it's like it has definitely got that like demo feeling to it, but because of that, it's also got like this kind of stripped down punk feeling to it. Like it feels like they could have like put more time into it and maybe come up with something interesting, but it would have been very different from like the roughness of this, because it is very rough, but it's appealing in its roughness.
Yeah, I agree with that, and we're gonna talk about the John Cale version pretty soon here,
Mm-hmm.
where I think like that one is like not to give too much, but it's like refined to a point where we lose that roughness and a sort
Yeah,
of a sense of
it's less
looseness.
like scrappy.
And it sort of it loses a lot in that. Now I did find a music video for this. I don't know if it's official
I didn't.
or if
I
somebody
didn't.
just cut some black and white footage of Picasso paintings and like miscellaneous Picasso living his life footage.
Yeah, I kind of assumed that that's what that was, so I didn't really watch it.
Yeah,
Anything to
it's
note in
that's
there?
really all it is. It's that description I just gave. You see some old Picasso
Okay.
paintings. You see Picasso walking around. He paints on a like a clear screen, so you get to like see him paint a flower pot and then this weird looking. I think it's a person,
Right.
and
I
that's
think that's
that.
also
Yeah,
in like one of the other ones we're gonna talk about.
yeah. I believe that's in the Burning
Yeah.
Sensations. Yes.
Yeah, it does look like flowers and like a basic caricature of a woman, but it's like, was it in The Office where they're like trying to differentiate between Spanish verbs, and they're like, we'll put this picture of boobs on female objects and this picture of balls on male objects, but they just like look the same. It's kind of like that kind
Yeah,
of shape.
it definitely had that kind of vibe to it. Where you're like, I don't know if those are boobs or testicles.
But like, anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's a music video that is probably not official. Anything else to say about the original before we move on, Alex?
There was something I thought was kind of neat. It sort of had this almost like devil on your shoulder vibe to me,
Mm-hmm.
even though the lyrics kind of seem like they're doing the opposite, but they're like, but if you do go with the like, maybe one day you could be Pablo Picasso and you could do all this shitty stuff, interpretation, that's kind of how I felt listening to the lyric, the way it's performed.
Yeah, there is because the voice is very, it's talking, so it's sort of
Yeah.
a lifeline in this chaotic arrangement
Mm-hmm.
where everything around it is quite rough. And then he's like, "Listen, here's the story. Don't be a schmuck or a bell bottom wearing guy." You're
Which I
like,
think a
okay.
bell bottom bummer, I don't know. Because like hippies existed around this time, but they were kind of going out of style. And they were known
Mm-hmm.
for wearing bell bottoms. So is that what a bell bottom bummer is?
Yeah,
I don't
maybe.
know.
And maybe as they're going out of style, like he maybe saying, "Don't be one of these people who clings to it. You just look sad. You're a bell bottom bummer."
Yeah. But also, I don't know. I'm just thinking of how Frank Zappa also didn't like hippies. So I think he called them assholes at some point as well. So
He for sure did. Frank Zappa called most people assholes, I
that's
think,
true.
throughout his life.
That's true. Pretty sure at one point he called people who have had a broken heart assholes.
Yeah, broken hearts are for assholes.
Um. Anyway, I don't know if that's the a comprehensive interpretation of that song, but that's definitely what the title's suggesting.
That's certainly the surface level. If nothing else, reading comprehension of titles, you've got it down.
Yes, that's all I needed. That was the
Yeah,
only requirement for doing this.
that pretty much. Yeah, so that's the original. It's pretty cool. I really like it. We're gonna move into the John Cale version in 1975.
Pablo Picasso, he could walk down his street and girls could not resist his stare.
So this was the first release. Again, the original was recorded in 1972, not released until 1976. So John Cale took this into his own hands. He's a Welsh musician, composer, singer, songwriter, and record producer, most famously known for being a part of the Velvet Underground. And also for producing the debut albums of both the Stooges and Patti Smith.
Which is pretty cool.
That's very
He's
cool.
kind of been active in the industry for a long time. I think he's still alive too.
Yeah, he is still alive. Yeah, he's one of those guys who like did his big spotlight in the Velvet Underground and has just kind of worked in the background. But like you can kind of note his influence pretty clearly, like on the Modern Lovers track, and then hearing that he produced for both the Stooges and Patti Smith, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That said, this version I'm not crazy about, Alex.
No, I would say it probably hit maybe a little less than the other ones. It's very similar in that it kind of sticks to a pattern of like the way the instruments are played. pretty well throughout. But it's also very different. It comes in with like a guitar riff, a particular, but very different from the original guitar riff. Just like bam,
very
bam, bam,
blues or
bam.
like southern rock.
I suppose so, yeah, with that
Yeah.
that one note in there. But there's some also like other interesting sounds. It's kind of trying to create this like sonic thing. There's this like really sort of grinding sound in the low end that I assume is a guitar, but it's just really just like. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I do. Do you have a spot that highlights it?
Right at the beginning.
Oh yeah, I think I hear it.
Just playing like.
Oh yeah, it's and it's not the bass line because the bass is doing
it's a little higher.
The actual bass. Yeah, it's just a little bit. Okay, yeah, it adds an extra crunch. I hear that.
So there's definitely like an interesting soundscape here, I think, but also very different from the original. It's been several years, so I guess he has different. Just wanted to try something different or whatever. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, his vocals have more of a like, almost like a preacher or a big storyteller vibe. Some people like to pick up girls. He's
true.
Like stretching out
He's got
certain
that
words.
kind of sound that you see in like that you like we talked about Once in a Lifetime. That's kind of how David Byrne does a lot of stuff, and I think he was pretty heavily influenced by like Velvet Underground. And the sort of school of the Velvet Underground, which for some reason I'm referring to. I don't know if I read that somewhere this week or what. It's in my head. And it's a lot of like echo on it too. So it has that sort of like big building kind of feeling. So I see where you'd get the preaching thing from.
Yeah, just a bit. And then so everything on this is much stiffer. It's more locked in, almost Cars-like in its sense of rhythm, where it's very like everything hits on exactly when it should hit.
Yeah, the original definitely has a much more free-flowing feel to it. Whether that's just because it's kind of a loose demo or because they wanted to do that on purpose. It certainly doesn't sound like a mistake on the original, I don't think.
No, it doesn't. Like, I think it all meshes well there.
Yeah, but this one, like, there's kind of like more guitars, more overdubbing, and like there's this guitar riff that kind of repeats. Like the bam bam bam, like it's more of like a riff.
Yeah.
You know? It feels like more of a thing and less of just like a noodle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's much more concrete.
And there's a few other like effects and stuff that you get. Like after the first verse, there's this more effects-driven guitar. Let me see if I can. It's like this. It's got this like real heavy like bounce, kind of a might be like a clav of some sort.
Okay.
What else is interesting about this version?
A lot of drum fills.
Yeah, it's shorter. They cut out a bunch of the like kind of loose soloing.
Yeah, I don't think we have the fable part, the be not bummer, be not whatever he says there.
That, which is kind of weird because I think like the tone of this song would fit that. Like you were saying, it kind of sounds like it's actually telling a story.
Yeah, it's most versions actually do not include that part.
Maybe it's, I think, so it was a lot harder to get official lyrics back in the day. And that part is really hard to understand.
Yeah, it is.
So maybe that's part of it. Obviously, John Cale could probably get official lyrics more easily, but I don't know. Maybe not. He's produced it, but that doesn't mean that he knew where Jonathan Richman was.
Yeah.
Anyway.
This one's another fade out. The guitar starts to rip, get a little louder near the end.
Yeah, and like there's more. It's a lot busier sonically, and sort of has that build, so it feels more like a produced product. It's not like it doesn't feel like a super polished pop song or anything like that.
Oh yeah,
it's still a John Cale song, but compared to the original, it has less of that free flowing thing.
Yeah, it just kind of like sits as more of a just like a regular rock and roll song, which isn't bad. It's just not as interesting as the original.
Yeah, and it's always a question for me anyway, how much of a regular song it would sound like in 1975 versus
Sure,
now.
yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't sound super out there or anything
No,
to
it's
me.
certainly not blowing my mind. But
But
that's
yeah, if
all
you
I've
want
got
like
for
a
this
little
one.
tighter version, a little bit more like sonic depth maybe in terms of the amount of things happening, you'll find it in this one.
Yeah, yeah. If you think you need more space filled in the song, you got it with this one. With that, we're gonna move on to Burning Sensations in 1984.
Picasso, why he could walk down the street. Girls could not resist his stare.
Another short-lived rock band from 1982 to 1987. Their most popular song is called "Belly of the Whale," which is a song about being in the belly of a whale.
Yeah, like Jonah.
Yeah, like exactly like Jonah. He's in the music video,
It's also this version of the song apparently was on the Repo Man soundtrack.
which will come up later.
Will it?
Yes.
Oh, color me surprised.
One of the songs is one of the future covers is a cover of this cover.
Oh, I see. I see.
We got two examples of covers on this one, which is exciting. It's fun stuff. This is 1984, same year as the film. We start out with what I've described here as like a steely synth sound. It could be a string. It could actually be like a gross bass or something. I'm not 100% sure. But very metallic.
It kind of sounds like a muted guitar to me.
It sounds like a loose sort of string, like you've tuned it to be a little loose and maybe muted it.
Maybe. I don't know about the tuning, but
It's because it's got that dump, 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 dump. And then you get the other an actual for sure guitar doing a little muted rhythm pattern. That dum dum down bum bum
oh, maybe I'm listening to something else. There is.
Maybe.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know
like
what
the
that is.
first thing that comes in there.
So it sounds like there's a hi hat, but there's also like something else going on. There's a couple hand drums in this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's that playing with a hi hat.
Maybe, but the you can hear the hand drumming pretty clearly. It comes in after that one little note.
A different hand drum.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Could be. Doesn't sound like a hand drum to me. You
No,
also
it
get a
doesn't.
shaker
I
percussion
see what
in
you're saying.
the right side of your ears there.
For real this time. I see.
You
what
see
you're
it for
saying.
real this time, like literally right at the start of the song.
Yeah, I don't know. It almost sounds electronic, like you were saying, a synth.
Yeah,
So
it could
be
very
like
well be
a
a synth.
drum, like a percussion pad kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So yeah, we start out already with a pretty rich profile. We get that hi hat, we get that weird noise, we get the
hand
rhythm guitar
drums.
coming in, and
Oh.
the hand drums, and a shaker percussion.
yeah, and that's how the first verse continues. He says, again, very like spoken, kind of understated delivery on the lines, and then at the end of that, it like really breaks out into the actual song. After that,
Yeah. So we get, and this one does a lot of full stops on the instruments.
yes, right at the
So you
end.
get
So
a
it does a
full
full
stop,
stop,
and
and
then
then
he'll-
Pablo Picasso was never called an asshole, and then they start,
Yeah.
like the guitar comes in.
Yeah, we get some long sustains on this guitar. We get that bass rhythm section, but I think it's a rhythm guitar, but very crunchy. Dun, 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 dun.
Yes, and then a saxophone
Yeah.
playing
So
along
that-
with
that
those
big,
like
long
held
sustain.
guitar
Yeah.
sounds. Very like definitely seeing the like Bowie influence on that. I think because it sounds to me like David Bowie playing the saxophone.
Yeah. Yeah, it does have that kind of Bowie sax vibe.
And like a harshness to it. Anyway,
And then with this, we get more, at least the kick drum on the drum kit alongside the hand drumming as well.
sorry I spelled something wrong.
Alex,
I
come on.
had to correct my spelling mistake. Yeah, the drums become a little more regular.
Yeah.
And then that kind of sets us up, and then we go into the second verse,
Yeah.
which you keep the saxophone around. Most of the things stick around. The saxophone kind of like plays riffs intermittently, but then also will make like squealing sounds and really like highlighting that sort of harshness of the saxophone, how it can do that.
And then, of course, everything builds till the end of the verse where we get another full stop. This one accompanied by a little t-tung on the hand drums.
Is this before the clap percussion comes in?
Yeah, I think it is just before this. So then afterwards we get that clap, clap, that very
like electronic clap percussion sound.
Yeah. Tap, tap, tap. Yeah, it's very electronic hand clap. You get that sax solo coming back in. It reminds me of like Black Tie, White Noise kind of sax, which didn't come out till like 10 years after this song.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Which is like, I don't even know how to describe that. Go listen to Black Tie, White Noise.
Yeah, check it out.
At least the song. Maybe the rest of the album.
It's
got some good
it's got
stuff
ups
on
and
it.
downs. It's got some good stuff though.
It has a cover of I Feel Free.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about David Bowie covers.
And believe me, I do, Alex.
And we do. There's a saxophone solo for a while, and like some more electronic stuff that comes in much later. I was a little lazy with my timestamps.
Yeah,
so it's in there.
I feel ya.
Is there a helicopter sound for a while?
Yeah, I put like jet plane noise, but the same
Something
field.
like that.
That's sort of like
Some sort of engine sound.
Yeah.
That is spinning. That's
and so you get your sax solo, but after that we're at like the 2.5 minute mark for this. Everything after that is pretty much the same, but again.
Yeah, they do the avocado verse again. And then some more sax.
Yeah.
It's a lot more sax focused than I was expecting from this one.
Yeah.
Particularly after the intro.
Yeah, before I listened to this, I listened to their Belly of the Whale song, which sounded very like ska influenced to me.
And this is
not
kind of that like dark post-punk thing that you get from like the sort of thing that led to like Sisters of Mercy that we talked about in the Give Me Shelter episode. It sort of has that same feel to it.
Yeah, it's got a bit of that going on. Yeah, like 3:15 we come back to the verse, and then he plays around with his voice a bit. He was only 5'3". So he plays around a bit. It all culminates to a fade out. As things are starting to go real wild, there's some like noises and some other shit going on. And that's Burning Sensations.
Yeah. It's in a movie soundtrack. How about that?
Yeah, how about that? Yeah, I got nothing else to say about that, but I do have things to say about the artist Phranc in 1991.
And she could walk down the street and girls, they could not resist her stare, and so Gertrude Stein, she was never called.
And that's Phranc.
Phranc.
Now, of course, Frank's version is called Gertrude Stein.
Because she replaces the mentions of Pablo Picasso with Gertrude Stein.
Mm-hmm.
Another sort of well-regarded figure in the modernist art scene, but who was, I think, a writer, not like a painter.
A novelist, poet, playwright, and art collector.
Yeah, there you go.
She famously hosted a Paris salon, so a salon being like a sort of gathering. It's basically just a party, but of influential people.
Yeah, she basically invited a bunch of artists, and then they all like met each other there. So like Picasso was there, and I think Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, a bunch of other people. But so that's her connection to Pablo Picasso. Her connection to Phranc, who has self-described herself once as the all-American Jewish lesbian folk singer, is of course that Gertrude Stein was a lesbian herself and has written a great deal of literature in that field. Mm-hmm.
Both like semi-autobiographical stories, I think some fiction as well. So she's like a lesbian icon as well as being affiliated with Pablo Picasso. In fact, looking at the music video, and this isn't a music video, it's just a YouTube video that somebody's put some paintings in. The first one there that shows up is Pablo Picasso's portrait of Gertrude Stein.
Well. How about that?
And apparently somebody commented to Picasso, they said that Stein didn't look like her portrait, and Picasso replied, "She will."
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means, like, contextually.
He's gonna make some changes himself, damn it.
God damn it.
That's like, there's like a web comic with Van Gogh, and he like paints his self-portrait, and then there's like a critic who's like, "Hey, you missed your ear," and he's like, "Oh, damn it," and like cuts his ear off. Like, I will. Anyway.
Oh, that's good. So yeah,
thank you to friend of the podcast, Will, for bringing that up a couple days ago.
Thanks, Will. Shout out. Big shout out. Yeah, so this is Phranc. She's got a sort of more of a folk vibe. This one starts up with some acoustic guitar going fast.
Yes, it's mostly fast acoustic guitar strumming. It's that kind of folk feeling.
Yeah. Which has its own storyteller vibe to it.
It does.
Different from The Preacher, but sort of in that vein. So first of all, instead of it being Pablo Picasso was never called an asshole, it's Gertrude Stein was never called an asshole.
Yeah, and there's like a few little changes to the lyrics. She specifies a pink Eldorado.
Yeah. This is the first one to characterize the avocado as well. This one's a fresh avocado.
Ah, yes. Which is, I guess, a particular shade of green. Is it the inside or the outside, though?
That's the question.
I'm going to say the inside, because if you look at that painting that gets mentioned of women with green skin, it looks like the inside of an avocado.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
She also says she was never called an asshole except by Alice.
Yes, Alice B. Talkless, who was Gertrude Stein's partner.
Described as Gertrude Stein's life partner.
Yes.
Because gay marriage was illegal. I'm assuming.
Yeah, presumably.
I don't know
all
the laws, but like I think it's a pretty safe assumption given the time period.
Yeah, Stein died in 1946, that is, so like probably not legal yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she does different I guess you call them ad-libs, different ending lines instead of not in New York and not like you. She has not in Gay Paris. Naturally, Gertrude Stein spent a lot of time in Paris and hosted, that's again the connection to Pablo Picasso, except by Alice, which of course was her life partner. And then the last one I think she does is except perhaps by Ernest Hemingway, who of course was at that famous Paris salon.
And maybe called her an asshole.
And maybe.
I don't know if there's more history between them. There's a lot of like history in these songs.
Yeah.
That I don't know the specifics of. I don't really know art history. This isn't even art history. This is like art gossip history.
Yeah. It's the key points are to know that Gertrude Stein knew Pablo Picasso had collected some of his art.
Yeah, and he painted her at least
Yeah.
once. There's also like another verse, a new verse.
Yes.
So okay, first line. Do you know what the last word in the first line is? I heard I get mean and I get something.
Vino.
Vino?
As in wine. I get mean and I get wine, essentially.
Oh. Me and my straight-lipped flannel shirt asshole.
I thought it was straight-laced.
Oh, maybe it's straight-laced. That's actually a phrase, so.
Yeah. What I do for these ones, and I had to go to 0.25 speed on this one because it was very difficult to figure it out. Yeah, whenever I can't figure it out, slow it down on the YouTube video and hope for the best.
This here is the story of Gertrude Stein. She could walk down the street and the girls, they could not resist her stare. And so, Gertrude Stein, she was never called an asshole. Except perhaps by Ernest Hemingway, and then a gunshot. And then more intense guitar strumming.
Yeah, so this one's all like intense guitar strumming and some drums.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't really like change much. Other than the lyrics changed from the original.
It's a good energy on it. She does those similar stops that Burning Sensations does,
Mm-hmm.
where they'll stop before the last line. She's like, except perhaps Ernest Hemingway.
Yeah,
you
the
know.
song structure really lends itself to that.
Yeah, it really
You like,
does.
stop and you're like, Pablo Picasso was never called an ass, and then yeah. Do they do that in the original?
Do they?
I didn't think so.
I didn't think so, because I think that one is just loose and chaotic.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a good sound.
Yeah, it's a good sound. Yeah, and so it's a simple one, but in the simplicity of it just being fast strum and drum, we get some of that looseness and
strum
that
and drum.
chaos from the original. We get that back in the mix, and I
Classic
think
strum and drum.
it's a classic strum and drum piece. Really, we all know about them. But yeah, I think that's a good vibe on this. I think it fits pretty well. I think the shift to Gertrude Stein was bold but calculated. I think it actually worked out really well.
Yeah, it's
And
kind
makes-
of the. Well, I don't know if it's the same. I don't know what Gertrude Stein's history is with fidelity,
Yeah, I suppose so.
but I mean, she was involved in a particular art scene that I wouldn't necessarily expect her to be like the nicest person. Maybe she was, but
Yeah,
I don't
I had to, like,
necessarily consider the people in that list of like people she brought together to be like great necessarily to hang out for me.
Yeah, they'd
Like-
be very, very. They'd be a lot, you know.
Yeah. Like, I'm sure if you were in art, did a bunch of art stuff, but like Mia is not really like an art creator.
Yeah.
You're
What
like,
would you even talk to
what would
think
I-
about it?
Yeah.
You'd have to explain so many parts of your job to them.
Yeah, so computers. All right.
Okay, we're gonna be here a while.
You know how electricity exists and you can turn on lights? Imagine that, but a million times a second. Now you do math with it. That's a good explanation of computers, right?
That's a fairly good explanation. It's a primer, you know.
And we use it to look at boobs. Let's talk about David Bowie.
Give me a second though. We
Oh, did I
forgot to
miss
just
something?
say just the exit, just because we do say it. This one is sort of your organic fade out. The guitar stops and the cymbal rings out. And we come to a
Yes.
close on it. That's that. Yes, Alex. Let's talk about David Bowie in the year 2003.
To Pablo Picasso.
2003, so we've jumped almost a decade.
Mm-hmm. Over a
Um,
decade.
Yeah, so this is I would say later Bowie, like
I mean, yes,
early
this
late
is-
Bowie.
So from his 23rd studio album, Reality.
Yes, Reality.
23rd of 25 albums.
Yeah, because there were 2 after this, which were all after his like 10-year break.
Mm-hmm.
This is with what kind of became, or at the time, his like longtime band, playing with Jerry Leonard, Earl Slick, Cale and Dorsey, and I forget
Right.
the rest of the band. But those are sort of the big names that I know. It opens with a cool guitar riff that I watched the live version is played by Jerry Leonard.
Okay.
Kind of a cool, what you might call an Arabian scale. I don't know if that's a good name for
Yeah,
it, but
it
that's a name
does-
I've heard for it.
I think that I don't know if that name is politically correct. I don't know if it's
Yeah. I don't know if it's
still the
technically
accepted
correct,
term.
but I think I have heard it. used.
Yeah, I think I'm familiar with that term, and that is what that sounds like. Interestingly, that riff starts in the right side of your speakers and then
pans
slowly
across.
pans over to the left.
Yeah, it's also cool because it kind of like skips. Like it's got a lot of echo, but it also goes bam, ba
Yeah, so distortion not only on the guitar, but in a sort of like as if the recording equipment was failing.
Yeah, which is fun.
Yes, you get that. Then we get this like immediate high energy right after that. This lead guitar rips in.
Yeah, this one does a lot. I mean, it's a lot more modern now. It does a lot more to create like the sort of full sound texture that you would
Yeah,
get from
100%.
rock and roll music after the early 90s, let's say.
Yeah, and so we move in from this high energy guitar to David Bowie's lyrical contribution to the piece, which is a chorus.
Yes, it's a lot
Which
more
reads,
of like a kind of standard verse chorus structure. Chorus verse,
Mhm.
chorus verse, chorus.
Yes, and that chorus is swinging on the back porch, jumping off a big log. Pablo's feeling better now, hanging by his fingernails. Swinging on the back porch, jumping off a big log. Pablo's feeling better now, hanging by his fingernails.
Yeah, I
What do
don't
you
really get this.
do you think David Bowie is Pablo in this scenario?
Swinging on the back porch. I mean, swinging on the back porch, that's got to be like a house with a veranda
Yeah.
and like you're swinging, right? And
Yeah,
jumping off
there's
a big
some
log is like into water, right? Like you're at a lake. This is a lake house.
maybe.
That's
You
what I'm
could just
getting out
jump.
of it.
I'm getting like ideas of youth in this.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, Pablo's feeling better now. This is sort of a resurrection of that one, this song from the 70s.
Yes.
Two, maybe a bit David Bowie, as like the early 2000s was not kind for his career. This was sort of another low point. And then yeah, hanging like jumping off a big log. Like you're right, it could be into water. It could literally be just a child on a log and then jumping off of it onto the ground.
Right, but it definitely does have that feeling of like early life. Or at the
Mhm.
very least kind of doing enjoyable things in an isolated place,
Yeah. And
which
he's
is why
hanging
I
by
thought
his
of a lake house.
fingernails, which suggests it's tenuous, I think.
Yeah. So like he's feeling better now, but like it could end at any time, sort of thing. I don't
Mhm.
really know. I've struggled to go further with it. I feel like there's more context needed.
Well, it might be a sort of album context. Another song that comes after
perhaps.
this is "Never Get Old."
Oh, that's a good song. I like that song.
That is a good song. And then yeah, so it might. I feel like maybe it is like a personal context thrown onto this piece, where it's like
So Pablo is David.
it's David in this sense. Because let's face it, if anyone has the sort of star status that they could get away with Pablo Picasso style bullshit, it's
Yes.
probably David Bowie.
Exactly. I mean that too. Like I'm sure he has some. I wouldn't be surprised if he had some feeling of like when he was and is David Bowie, he could probably get away with a lot of things that other people couldn't because of the star power.
Mhm.
And really, of all the ones we've said, John Cale could maybe, but like David Bowie's the one who could
Yeah,
fit
David
this
Bowie is
description,
a
especially David
household
Bowie in
name.
2003.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
John
that's his
Cale like in
contribution.
the right crowd, but David Bowie in a much larger crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. So we get this, and it's sung by what, like a chorus of like audio, like filtered David Bowie
Yeah,
voices.
it's kind of like chanted. But yes,
Yeah.
it's definitely like singing on the back porch, jumping off it. Like it's
Yeah, because you got a
it's very
low one, you got a
smooth.
high one. It really is like a
is
choir
I don't,
chant.
is there a high one in the first time?
Maybe not.
Because
You
I
know
think
what?
it
You're
comes
right.
in
It
the
is just
second and the
lower.
third.
The second and third, where it is just David Bowie singing the leads while his chant in the back
Yeah.
plays as well. Yeah, you're right on that. It's always tough for me to like really nail down songs that I've listened to like a billion times when we have to.
Yeah, and it's hard to
dissect them.
remember like subtle changes between two repetitions of the same thing.
Yeah,
Where are we? Chorus.
of course. So then after this, we get that.
That's right. That's their riff on this kind of like horn, like brassy synth.
Yeah.
That's kind of like its transition riff that this version uses.
Mm-hmm. And then we've got a bass line there. It's pretty much just root notes. You get some of those chaotic like guitar noises, just some like.
Yes, a lot of that. And the way he sings the verse, I think, is interesting. And I'm trying to think of what other song I could compare it to. I'm sure there's something, but I'm struggling. It's like I know all these David Bowie songs, but it's hard to summon them when I need them, conjure them.
It's a very
kind of thing like,
it's very
"Girls
shouty
will turn the
for
color
Bowie.
of a spicy
Avocado, juicy avocado.
juicy avocado, juicy avocado. Like it's
And here
Yeah.
we're going down in his Eldorado. It's you don't really hear David Bowie shout a lot of songs,
No.
not in this style anyway.
yeah, but it has that feeling.
And-
And I'm trying to think of I think there's other examples. This isn't the first time he's done this.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. But yeah, I
At
for
least
some reason
for part of
cannot
the song,
conjure.
but
Yeah.
I can't think of an example.
Yeah, and so then on the verse, it's a lot of just driving rhythm. There's some guitar just kind of following along. And then in between his phrases, we go back to sort of that transition.
Yeah. And then it brings in that intro sound for a bit as well, and then goes into another chorus. But as we mentioned, this time there's kind of two Bowies, or two like sounds. There's the like low chanting, and then David Bowie singing it higher.
Yeah. Worth noting on the verses, we do get some big cymbal crashes kind
Oh,
of
we do.
consistently from the drums. And then, of course, his delivery of the not like he who line is gold. Is very good.
Not
like you.
You. Yes, it is. It is a pretty big sound too. Like you were saying with the cymbal crashes, it definitely has kind of like there's some punk feeling there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got Bowie shouting. You got these drums fucking just crashing.
Yeah, it's still more like polished because it's still like 2000s Bowie, but it has a little bit more of maybe an edge.
Yeah, it's just
not even necessarily an edge, but like the suggestion of an edge.
Yeah, and just big energy.
Yeah, I guess so. Big energy. Yeah.
Not like you.
There's not a whole lot of like new stuff after this point.
Yeah, we come back to that guitar that ripped in the intro after the Arabian part.
Yes. You do. Sorry. Which part are you on? I
So
missed a
I'm
keyword in
right
that
before
sentence.
the second chorus here.
Okay, right before the second chorus. Got it.
So at the second, I'm just about to jump into the second chorus, where of course we've already really mentioned the big difference.
Yep.
You get David Bowie's lead vocals on this as well.
Mm-hmm. And then and I don't think like I don't have a ton more to note. There's a guitar solo.
Yes.
After that, because they do the chorus and then another verse.
Oh yeah, we get another one of these. Yeah, So yeah, we get a little transition segment that.
The way he does the verses is kind of neat too, because he's got a lot of the words, not all the words, but he shuffled them around a bit, and basically he's just squished in the sort of half verse, because there's the short verse, which is realize now the verse where they talk about him being short is the short verse. Didn't notice that before.
Yeah, and like he really breaks them up, so he'll do like 2 or 3 lines at a time.
Yeah,
he's
kind of broken up the verses into thirds.
Yeah,
because he's got the first verse has try to paper girls they get called assholes never happened to Pablo Picasso, which you'd compare with the walk down your street, girls never resist a stare, never called an asshole, and then does the juicy avocado part in the middle. And then in the first one, he has the you can walk down your street, which is actually the first part of the second verse. And then in the second verse, the last part is when he goes into the 5'3", and then kind of leads back to the never called an asshole. Not in New York.
Wow. Not in New York. That reminds me of Dancing in the Streets when they just shout out the names of cities. Santa Monica, New York.
Those are places.
Those
and I'm
are
sure
places.
They have streets.
Probably, yeah.
Santa Monica.
What a song that one is. Yeah, besides that, like you said, a lot of this is fairly similar. Yeah, at the 3-minute mark, or just a bit after it, we hit the guitar solo. And during that,
which
we
is
get
sort
these...
of in the same style. Like it does the intro sound.
Yeah.
And then kind of goes into a solo from that. Turns down the echo.
That's right. Yeah, and then in the back, we get these sort of like filtered drums. So they almost sound like they're coming in on like a radio or something. They're like...
Yes. Does that happen at the very beginning as well?
I'm not sure, Alex.
No, it doesn't. Never mind.
No, it doesn't. And then we also
Yep.
get horns
Killer
that come
Jones.
in around the 3:30 mark.
Horns. What are they doing with
Horns. Just hanging out. Just hanging out in the lower end, really.
That's that low end. Is that a guitar?
Doing that, what I have called horns?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Okay. I can
Like, those
accept
are,
that.
yeah.
Um,
We fade out on the guitar solo.
it does fade out on the guitar solo.
What do you think about that, Alex?
I don't know. Like the more we talk about fading out on songs, the like less I'm bothered by it. I think it's just that if there's a song I don't like very much, then they fade out. I'm like, fuck you guys. What are you doing?
I think it can ruin a song. I think not often, but I think we've hit some examples where
yeah,
it
and I think
sucks.
it's maybe easy to notice if it does make it, like if it makes the song worse. And then you're like, this always sucks. But most of the time it's just neutral, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's how I feel here as well. I love this version. It's big Bowie. It's high energy. We get some cool guitar parts. I like his delivery of the lyrics.
He has cool ways of like kind of singing the lyrics like sort of rhythmically and with this like strange enunciation. That I mean, Bowie enunciating strangely. I know, such a shock, but
It is confusing for sure.
but I mean, it's David Bowie. I like David Bowie.
Oh yeah, it's great. With that, we're going to talk about a cover of this version by a band called FourYearBeard, all one word, 2007.
FourYearBeard. FourYearBeard.
FourYearBeard.
Although we should mention, on Spotify, the title of the song is FourYearBeard, and the artist is listed as Pablo Picasso, but they seem to have it reversed.
Yeah. And it's funny. Did you go ahead and click on Pablo Picasso?
There's
Because he is
another artist
apparently
who
an artist.
calls themselves. It's a rapper. No, it's not a rapper. I'm
not
sorry.
a rapper. According to his album.
Yeah, there's another artist who calls themselves Pablo Picasso. Latest release, their only release is from
this
November
year.
5th of this
Last
year.
month. Or 2 months ago.
But there's also, 2 months, almost exactly. Wow.
Oh no.
Sorry,
Alex.
I choked on my own spit when I inhaled normally. But yes, FourYearBeard from
Tell me about him,
some
Alex.
tribute album to David Bowie. So actually, looking at this album, the entire album, they have reversed the artist and the song title.
Way to go,
So,
guys.
That's unfortunate. But FourYearBeard, I couldn't find a ton of info on them, but I found their Facebook page, and they call themselves an experimental rock and roll fused head trip.
And is it worth noting that experimental has been hyphenated?
Yes, Experit-mental.
Because they're fucking mental,
Because they're mental. And they're a cover band. Well, they have originals and covers.
They have originals and covers.
But this is a cover. So.
And this cover is of the song Pablo Picasso.
But it
And
is a
it's-
cover of the David Bowie version of the song Pablo Picasso, originally performed by the Modern Lovers.
That's right. Yes, this one starts out with like electronic noise, like a little whip.
Yeah, like
a
bleeps
radar
and bloops,
sound.
computer bleeps
Yeah.
and bloops, and like a little bit of like guitar, like kind of feedbacky sounds.
Yeah.
And then
And that
just
gets
brings
louder.
some synthesizers and guitars.
Yeah.
Mostly guitars, but some synthesizers.
Yeah. There's that dun, 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 dun. I think that's a guitar, right?
Yeah, I think so. Bum, bum,
Yeah,
bam,
yeah.
bum, bum, bam, bum, bam,
Yeah,
bam.
and then you get your distorted guitar rhythms. And then very quiet, like whispered growl chorus.
Yeah, this I would also compare with Sisters of Mercy, the
Mm-hmm.
band.
That's fair.
The delivery on this. There's also this synth that comes in for the chorus, verse.
For that-
I guess no.
Are you
this
talking
is
about
the
that one
chorus.
that comes in for like the transition. That
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
I'm talking about. It's like a whistle. It's like a whistle, like a kettle boiling whistle.
Okay.
Woo!
Oh yeah, I hear it.
Yeah.
It's actually, is that the one in the back that goes?
It might be. I'm not sure.
Because that comes up later as well.
I think it is. I think later it goes a bit lower and starts to play.
Yeah, so you can
Yeah.
actually like perceive it better.
Yeah. And then yes, it does do the riff from that but it's a much more like of a classic kind of slow filter. I want to say sawtooth wave, but I didn't double check that. Synthesizer.
Yeah, it does sound very classic.
Yeah, it's like a very synth sound,
Yeah.
which I would also describe as a bzzz.
Yeah, that's about right.
And then
And then we get a hey,
hey. They
and we
say
come
hey.
into the
That's
chorus,
fun.
which is shouty vocals, but more in the realm of like hard rock to light metal.
Yeah, there's definitely like a bit of like metal, but in that sort of post grunge metal, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got that rough sound. That never happened to Pablo Picasso. And then they do another chorus, and it's kind of the same thing as the Bowie version. Hang on, there's a big gap here that I have not.
Oh no, Alex.
Oh well.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
after the first verse there, they kind of go like down, and then they do a little transition phase, and then yeah, it's into the same chorus again. You get that. I think this one, that synth that you're talking about, is more prominent.
Yeah, it's more noticeable now.
Yeah.
Kind of doing the
Yeah,
less
that's
of just
the-
like a ambient kettle sound.
Yeah, yeah, a little more weight to it. I like that little pattern. I think it sounds pretty good, and I think the synth noises on this in general, pretty good.
Yeah, it kind of has this like boing, like it slowly slides up thing. Like they're really using the what's it called? Pitch wheel.
Yeah.
On the synthesizer. A lot of synthesizers have a pitch wheel where you can bend the pitch up and down with your hand that's not playing, and it has that, slow sound. You can do that kind of stuff. But really,
Yeah.
they're doing very, very similar to how David Bowie did, at least in theory. Their sound is quite different, of course. They
Yeah.
have the kind of chanting here for the chorus, but they kind of also have the lead vocals now, which kind of the lead vocals really aren't like very melodic, which
No.
we know, but even less so than I think the Bowie version.
Yeah, I would agree to that.
Yeah, they're not. I sometimes they sound like a bit off key too. Not really that big a deal though. I don't think. Just something I noticed. Like it kind of works with the way they perform it.
Yeah, it's they're promoting some of that roughness. I think it's all
Mhm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Drums on this are very simple, just like a standard 4/4 rock beat.
I mean, a lot of the versions stay pretty consistent throughout and
That's
don't
true.
put like super complicated
Just
stuff
compared
in.
to the Bowie version, which at least had some cymbal work going on.
Ah,
like
I
this
see.
one's-
That's right. We did mention that. I mean, you
Yeah.
did mention that. That was
I
really
mentioned
you.
that. Look at me mentioning things.
Look at you. I mostly speak in royal wheeze. I've noticed, like
Oh, yeah.
just generally speaking. I don't know if that means anything. Where it's like, yeah, we did do that. It's like, no, I did that. Me.
Me, bro.
or maybe
the
you did.
3-minute mark
Mm.
is, I think, our most important new thing, where it goes down to just the drums and this like
Drum
what I've
break.
described as like a VHS hum,
VHS hum. Eh?
like a.
Oh.
It sounds like old electronics.
Yeah.
It's obviously a synth.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was the same like whistling synth from before. It definitely goes up high frequency.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
But it's got some like static on it. Definitely.
Yeah.
That if it was there before, there was too much other stuff for you to hear it.
Yeah. And then we get the rhythm guitar comes back in. And I've written here we end on a fade out of big, dumb, ugly percussive hits.
Wait, there's a
Is that true?
synthesizer solo in there somewhere.
Is there?
I think so.
Well, it comes back that your steam whistle, your kettle, whatever you want to call it. But it's just doing its riff.
Yeah, I guess it's more bending. I guess
Yeah.
they go boom,
Alright.
boom. So I don't know if it's like a solo per se, but it's kind of the focus. It's like 3:30
Yeah.
or so.
Certainly being spotlighted.
Yeah, it's like kind of a solo, maybe.
Yeah.
With a lot of, again, that pitch bend work.
Right, and then at 3:57, the last 10 seconds of this song is just boom, 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 boom. On like drums, that synth,
Yes.
and any other instrument.
Just a ton of that, like hitting on the same. Bam, 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 bam. Kind of, it almost sounds like it's like skipping, like
Mhm.
record skipping, for what it's worth.
Yeah, overall this one is like it's fun, and it's interesting to see them cover the David Bowie version, which is a little more musically involved than the original.
True.
And I think they pull out some neat elements. I think I think maybe the vocals might be the weakest point of this. Feels like there's a bit of a mixing issue, particularly on the first time the chorus comes in. And then, like you said, maybe some issues of being on key or something.
Yeah, which I know it's supposed to be sort of like a chant, but it's like a bit noticeable and maybe not quite right.
Yeah.
Maybe
Maybe.
not quite right. But yeah,
Not
so
quite
yeah,
right.
it's like a more amateurish version, but they do a decent job.
Yeah, I think they do a decent enough job. Speaking of decent jobs, we're going to talk about the Tellers in 2012.
Some people try to pick up girls, get cold assholes. This never happened to Pablo Picasso, Pablo Picasso, Pablo Picasso.
Which is from the album A Tribute to Repo Man.
Oh yeah.
Yes, so this is the tribute to the Burning Sensations version.
True.
Now, the Tellers are a rock group from Belgium that started in 2005. A song of theirs was included in the soundtrack of FIFA 08.
The best FIFA game.
The best FIFA game. All the FIFA heads are always telling us
The
that.
sound of 08. Everything after 08 is just a joke, man.
It's fucking shit.
Play FIFA 08 or
Garbage.
kill yourself. That's what they say.
So that is what they say. They're a very toxic community.
Yeah, very mean.
I don't know what their deal is, man.
Yeah, real talk, man. I think I've played a FIFA game. I don't know which one it was.
I've almost certainly seen a FIFA game being
Yeah, I
played.
played
Have
FIFA
I played it myself?
on the Xbox. I think that was the last time I played a FIFA game, and it was just at a friend's house.
That checks out. That makes sense.
Like, and not like as a retro thing. This is pre 360.
Right, yeah, this would have been like you were hanging out with sports friends who also liked Halo, so they had an Xbox.
Exactly. And then they just beat me at Halo, and I felt bad about myself, which is not their
Yeah.
fault.
Oh, no, not at all.
They were just better than me at Halo. But
Largely on account of having access
I was
to
young, and
Halo.
it made me feel bad. Like,
Oh, for sure.
yeah, because they owned the Xbox, and I was like, "What? There's a black and a white button?
Yeah.
Press what to
Black
throw a
and white
grenade?"
buttons? Yeah, it was
It's very
too much.
confusing. Back and start? Where's select?
Why are all these buttons the same size?
Why is this controller massive? All right, that's enough
Huge
talk about
controller.
playing Xbox at your friend's house. Because
House.
neither of
Was
us
it-
owned an Xbox.
That's true.
The Tellers, they're a band from Belgium,
Yes.
and apparently they're like reasonably popular. Like
Yeah.
they've had some decent hits in like Northern Europe, which is cool.
Cha, buddy.
I've never heard of them. And I suppose this is a cover of the what are they called?
Burning Sensations.
Burning Sensations. But I didn't really think it was that much like the Burning Sensations version.
I would say unrecognizable from it.
Okay,
as much
good.
as it is
I'm
like
glad
as much as it is a cover of any version on this one.
Right.
It's very different.
because when you said that there was another one that was a cover of the Burning Sensations earlier, I was like, oh fuck, which one is it?
Yeah, you're like, I don't fucking know.
I didn't notice that. All right. Cool. Yes, this one is quite different. Let's talk
Yeah.
about it.
We start off with my least favorite element, this bell percussion.
You don't like that? Kind of
I
like
d- I
high
think it gets a-
metallic.
Yeah.
Sound.
And just because it is there the whole time, it starts to grate on me a bit.
Pretty regular.
That said, that's like my one negative on this. I think this version kind of fucking rocks.
I do too.
We get this guitar doing this sort of weird arpeggio, and I think there's a synth playing that as well.
Almost kind of like off kilter sound, even though it's not
Yeah.
really. I don't know why.
It certainly sets
has
you
that
like
feeling.
it gives you a bit of unease. There's something about the tone that's just like
Yeah,
we're a
it's
little off kilter here.
sort of that feeling I get from. I believe it's the third level of Donkey Kong 64.
Oh yeah.
DK 64 level 3.
Was it Creepy
Frantic
Castle?
Factory.
Frantic Factory, yeah.
Best enough for there. Wow. Did you know that DonkeyKong.fandom.com gives you a custom mouse pointer? That is one of the bad guys from Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze.
Weird.
Anyway.
Is it like a GeoCities website? When's the last time you saw a custom mouse pointer?
I don't. It's like fandom, you know. I don't
yeah,
know.
I know.
I don't know if that's enough. I think that's enough information.
Nonetheless, so we get the guitar and we get that synth, we get the bell.
Yeah. Bam, bam, bam. Yeah, it's
And
like
then
that
we-
high. It's like high metallic thing, sort of like ringing. It might be a high bell. It could be like a Celesta. It's metallic.
It's metallic. And then we get a dude singing, like for real, like
Singing.
It's like the closest we get to singing in this
Yeah.
episode.
And sort of like fat. Like they've changed it up a bit. Some people try to pick up girls, get called asshole.
Yeah. And then on the name Pablo Picasso, we get female harmonies that come in and they repeat the name a few times. Pablo
Yes.
Picasso. Pablo Picasso.
Yeah, they sort of harmonize with him.
Yeah.
So there's two kind of layers that his vocals sound kind of like Britpoppy to me.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, a little bit of Oasis in there, a little bit
Yeah,
different accent
Yeah, and a touch nasally.
across
like-
the North Sea.
Yeah. I follow that. So 25 seconds in, we get the bass line kicking in, and this
Oh, we
thing is
do.
fucking good. I like
We
this
do get
bass
the
line.
bass. Boom, 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 boom.
And the bass
boom,
takes like a
boom.
prominent role in this song. It is just doing like grooves,
Yeah,
but it's mixed in there that it takes up a good portion of the main floor, as it were.
yeah, it makes it a lot more like funky, and I guess most of the other ones really don't have much focus on the rhythm at all.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a change, quite a bit of a change. Yeah.
And then coming
was
in with
way
that,
too
we
much
get
to
some
say.
very simple drums, and then what I think is a marimba.
Where are we talking here?
Like pretty much right after like post 25 seconds here. It'll be like probably
Oh, I
30
see.
seconds in.
Yeah, I always go back and forth. I'm like, is it wood? Is it metal? So I said like marimba or vibraphone,
Yeah.
something like that. It's that sort
Something
of an
like that.
instrument. Someone striking something with a mallet, probably, or it's a synthesizer because it could always be a synthesizer.
Yeah, always. Yeah, so that comes in. We get another verse from the vocals, same style as the first ones.
Yes, except this time they do repeats El Dorado instead of Pablo Picasso.
That's right.
Sing El Dorado. What is this, a Christmas song? Why'd I write that?
Just because you get that bell in there.
Probably.
And I've noticed now the bell actually does leave.
At which point?
About 56 seconds.
So like when they go back
stops.
and repeat verse 1.
Yeah, and we get the bigger drums, so we get a much stronger
Oh,
hit.
that's true. You get that you get that snare
Yeah.
come in. The other thing that happens on the repeat, there's a guitar that's been strumming chords, and it's faster now.
Yeah.
But it's faster, but it's like quarter notes.
Mm-hmm. So we get that sort of buildup of energy you expect in a song like this.
Mm-hmm. Definitely more of a feeling like there's more repetition, and there's more of like a structure. So it's got more of like a poppy feeling.
for
It
sure.
doesn't sound like super poppy. It's almost like, okay, I haven't listened to the Arctic Monkeys a ton,
Mm-hmm.
so I shouldn't say this.
Say it, dude. Say
I
it.
was just gonna say, for some reason, it makes me think of the Arctic Monkeys, but I've listened to like 3 Arctic Monkeys songs,
Well, nobody can prove you wrong in that it reminds you of the Arctic Monkeys.
and I don't know why, because I barely listen to the Arctic Monkeys. It's just
Ugh.
like kind of from around the same-ish time.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Anyway, that's probably a bad take. Let's keep going.
So round 115, we go full harmonies on the lines.
Yes, where they go back and forth. Is that what you're talking about?
No, they're not
No.
back and forth.
Oh,
They're
not
at the
yet.
same time. They go
Okay.
back and forth later.
All right. I'm off then.
And the bass is changed up again. Like the bass is very active in this.
Oh, you mean the he could walk down the street, that part? And girls could
Yeah.
not resist. He was only 5'3". And girls could
Yes.
not resist. Yeah, they kind of have their own. Is this a chorus? I guess I don't need to call it anything. A different part. And then they start saying his stare.
Yeah, the stare.
His stare. It kind of sounds like they say his stare sometimes and the stare or
Other times.
other times.
yeah.
I wasn't quite sure.
Well, we can never know. Then after that, we get the back and forth on El Dorado.
Yes, because they do the second verse again. The
Yeah.
avocado verse. And then El Dorado, El Dorado. But it starts on the backup.
Yeah.
El Dorado.
Also worth
El
noting,
Dorado.
this version is 2 minutes and 42 seconds, so the shortest.
It is quite short, but they fit a lot into it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else going on? Like, they kind of do some more repeats. They do that, and then they do the he could walk down the street, but girls cannot resist thing again. And then they say his stare more. First time they say it
Yeah.
6 times. The second time they say it 12 times. So that's twice as much.
That's right. And
Yeah.
then from there, we kind of get out of that with the, like a guitar sort of builds up through that stair section and then breaks us out of it. And then we repeat the name Pablo Picasso as we come back to that sort of initial arrangement with the guitar and the drums.
They even do like a. Which version was it that had a bunch of repeated strumming on? Just like no, this is the original. On,
Yeah,
like,
I think that
single
was the
note.
original. Yeah, because
They do
that,
some of
that
that
guitar
kinda
that
stuff.
comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they repeat the name a few times. We get a very quick ending, just a tss. Done.
Yeah. No fade out.
No fade out. Yeah, super good. With that, let's talk about the longest version. Jack White,
Jack
2018.
Some guys trying to pick up girls and they keep calling assholes. This never happened to Pablo Picasso. He like walked in the street and girls could not resist his stare.
Jack
Jack
White
White.
himself. So if you're not familiar
Jack
with
White.
Jack White, he was in the White Stripes.
Yeah.
He
You can
plays
listen to our Hotel Yorba
blues
episode.
rock. Yes, this is very different from Hotel Yorba.
Very.
The White Stripes, as we have noted in the past, was sort of an aesthetic experiment, or like had an aesthetic of this simplicity. And that was something that Jack White played with for a long time and possibly still uses to some degree, but definitely much less if you listen to his solo stuff. Doesn't have that
Mhm.
same aesthetic philosophy. And this definitely isn't minimalist.
No. This is just very like Jack White doing the blues, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. It was what from some Spotify sessions, so I don't really know how that Spotify Studios.
Yeah.
I don't really know how that works.
Yeah,
like-
so it's just like a studio recording.
It's just yeah. I'm assuming they're just all playing in the studio, kind of like MTV Unplugged,
Except plugged.
except plugged. They're plugged.
Yeah. These fellas are plugged. Yeah, it opens with an organ, and then we get this sort of distorted guitar that just kind of noodles.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I would say it's like very quick riffs that are kind of muted.
Yeah. Right, and then from there we move into some just muted plucking, and then we get a heap of echoes on Jack White's vocals when
Yes.
he gets in.
There's also an electric piano, so we've got an organ and an electric piano.
And
going.
electric piano, which they will play at the same time later
They
in this
will.
song.
They will. Yeah, ton of echo on Jack White's vocals. I mean, it's his vocal style. It's what I would expect from
Mhm.
him. Maybe not this
They-
much echo necessarily, but Sounds like Jack White singing.
It certainly sounds like
distinctive
Jack
voice.
White. So he does the first verse. The last line is free of instruments. They all stop, and he says, "Pablo Picasso was never called an asshole."
Which, like we said, this song's kind of set up for that kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's a good trick.
Yeah. Try turning all the instruments down. That's a good trick.
And then we get a guitar solo after the first verse. At almost every minute mark in this song, we get another solo.
There's a lot of guitar solos in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, fairly Jack White, kind of based around that quick, muted playing.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of I think he does a good job here with his tone. His tone is very strong.
Yeah, on his guitar or on his voice?
His guitar.
Okay. Yeah, I'll agree to that.
It's kind of has this feeling of like there's all this like raw power available, but because he's muting so much, like it's just being held back, kind of.
Yeah.
Like he's just barely holding on. So that was kind of an interesting thing sonically about this version.
Yeah, I agree. I think the guitar tone is very good. The solos themselves are interesting and diverse enough.
Yeah, that's what you're listening to. This version is 6.5 minutes long, and a lot of it is guitar solos.
Yeah.
It's almost has the feeling of like this being like a blues standard. Like we've talked about in the past, where you play a blues standard kind of just so you can throw a solo in the middle, and then the rest of it is just you being like, "Wild thing, you make my heart sing," and then you just like go into a guitar solo.
Yeah.
Even though this song is really not a standard.
Not remotely, but it is simple enough that you can get away with this.
And although it is, I would say, different enough, just because standards are usually like not much in the way of vocals with like a big chorus, and this was really not that. Other than I guess the Pablo Picasso was never called an asshole kind of refrain.
Yeah, it's got like
thing.
a hook line.
So you can treat it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of it. Yeah, it's a lot of like really, like clearly tone is a big focus of these artists. So it's a lot of like very bluesy guitar playing, bluesy organ, bluesy electric piano. There's drums in there too.
Yeah. Yeah, we get a good drum roll around the 3-minute mark that leads us into another solo, of course.
Another solo, yes. A solo that in particular has a lot of high frequency, as I noted.
Yeah, that seems to be like our peak, is that one, because it goes very high, and then after that we come down with a bit of like an organ sustain, down to some very, very muted guitar.
Right.
And some sort of he starts doing these ad-libs. He was 5'0" and never called an asshole. He didn't have a camera. He was 5' something and never called an asshole.
What does it mean that he didn't have a camera? That he painted them?
Yeah, I suppose.
I don't know. And then kind of adds his own verse on the end too, which is not really like he just changes a few things. He says he would drop down the street. That's what the lyrics say on the line anyway. In his Coupe de Ville, which is a different kind of car.
It is a different kind of car.
And think of all the things that you don't want to let spill out of your brain, out of your mind. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. It's Pablo Picasso was never called an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of more of the same, although I'm not totally sure. It says thinks of all the things you wouldn't want to let spill. I mean, so like you're both just thinking it and not letting it spill. I feel like he should be saying the things you wouldn't want to let spill because he's Pablo Picasso. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Anyway, the focus of this song is the solos, I think, and they're pretty solid. I think they're like distinct enough from one another and sort of add to the overall like build of the song well enough. Like it's structured well.
Yeah, I would say that's structured well. They are distinct from each other, and no single solo overstays its welcome.
There's just a lot of them.
There's just a lot of them, yeah. So yeah, overall, I thought this one was pretty good.
I thought so too.
Am I gonna come back to it? Probably not.
Maybe. I mean, if I'm really feeling like listening to some like Jack White and some White Stripes, maybe.
Maybe.
Just because it's a pretty good song generally.
Yeah, dog.
But we'll see.
We'll see. With that, we're gonna get into our final verdicts. We got 3 categories today. We have the worst version, the best version, and the version that Pablo Picasso would be most fond of. Alex,
Whew,
tell
it's a
me.
good thing I don't know anything about Pablo Picasso.
You know he's Spanish.
I
That's
know
all you
he's
really
Spanish.
need to know. Had a
Uh,
thing for cubes. Alex, worst version of this.
and he just drew cubes all the time. I don't know.
This is fucking weirdo.
I don't know why. What's the worst version? I think for me, it was FourYearBeard. I didn't hate it or anything, but it was sort of, it was my least favorite, definitely. It was like fine. I'm trying to think of specific reasons. It wasn't bad. It was just less than the other ones.
Yeah, that's fair. I think you might be right. I was prepared to come into this and give it to John Cale, but I do think that, and maybe it's by benefit of John Cale being a professional musician for years and years and years, as opposed to FourYearBeard, who are, experimental. Emphasis on the mental.
Emphasis on the mental.
But
It's
yeah,
your brain.
I think the FourYearBeard had the worst performance on this, despite having perhaps the most pieces, next to maybe
Yeah.
like the Tellers.
And
But
like generally being a solid version. I
yeah,
would
it's
say.
really not bad. There's some mixing troubles, but yeah, I think maybe if they took a second crack at it, they could come out with something better.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex, what's the best version of
What's
this?
the best version? I think my favorite version was the Tellers version. I really enjoyed what they did with it. They added some cool sounds. They added, they made some good changes to the structure to make it a little more, I don't know, not necessarily more, but to make it different in an interesting way. And I liked what they did with it. And I wrote out all the lyrics too, just so I could know what happened. So that was Now I could go on to musicsmatch.com, which says lyrics not available, and potentially submit them, but I don't know if I
submit
want to
them,
do that.
Alex. You could be a
Oh,
hero.
it's for Spotify. Oh no, it's not. It can be for Spotify. Anyway,
Yeah,
what was
I
your
think the
favorite
Tellers.
version?
The Tellers, it's a toss up for me between David Bowie and the Tellers. The Tellers was obviously new to me, and so part of my brain is just excited to see something new, and it's
Right.
chewing on that. But the David Bowie version of this is so masterfully done. It's just like, it's David. Like, probably not a huge effort for David Bowie, if I had to guess. It was probably pretty easy to get all the parts together for this. But I really do like that sound. It's got big energy. It plays nice on the album. I think I'm gonna give it to David Bowie because I am a coward and too scared to put somebody above him.
It's also a good version.
It's also a good version, yeah. But yeah, Tellers is definitely a close second. So yeah, best to David Bowie. Alex, what version would Pablo Picasso appreciate the most?
What version would Pablo Picasso appreciate the most? Pablo Picasso
You know he likes women
likes women
and cubes.
and he likes cubes. And he is a modernist artist, I guess.
Yes.
Although I'll admit I don't fully know what that means.
This
Like I
means
don't
he's
fully
more
understand
modern than other artists.
what that means. It means he comes
Modernist.
after other artists and before postmodern artists.
That's right.
Not very modern anymore, are you, Pablo?
No.
All the modernists are dead. Anyway, I'm getting off track. What would Pablo Picasso like the most? I think Pablo Picasso would most appreciate the hardworking, fairly established artist who is known for making good creative choices. So I think at the very least he would like John Cale the most. Possibly he would also like John Cale's version the most. So I'm going to say that.
That's an interesting choice. I'm going to choose similar for that hard-working vibe. I just read on his Wikipedia page that he is a printmaker. He was a printmaker and ceramicist, among other things. So, did a little work with his hands in a more physical sense. Jack White famously built a guitar out
That's
of
true.
like a Coke bottle and a board, and I think he would like Jack White. I think Jack White's a little up his own ass, and I think Pablo Picasso probably is too. And I think they might like
get
each
along.
other for that. Yeah.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
See that. So we kind of said the same thing, but for different people.
For different people.
Although
And,
I
yeah.
am much more familiar with like the persona of Jack White than John Cale.
John Cale, sure.
For
fair.
some reason, I have given these attributes to John Cale as well.
And John Cale is closer in time to when,
True, they could have actually met.
Yeah, there might have been
Maybe
some
they did. I don't
crossover.
know.
I don't know. Maybe, at the very least, Cale's music might be more palpable based on those grounds alone.
Just because it's closer in time.
Yes. That's our final verdict. If you've got a different opinion, similar opinion, or want to talk to us about a version we didn't talk about, hit us up on Twitter, #CoverMePod, @JakeTheCressy, @SomeAlexWiseGuy. You can also hit us up on email. That's covermepod@gmail.com. Hit us with your comments, questions, concerns, and, we'll talk to you. We'd love to talk to you. Rate us, review us. We're on Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, any other podcast app you want to name. And if we're not there, you fucking tell me. I'll show you something. I'll show you how to submit a form to a podcast network to put your podcast up there. Just you fucking wait. With that, we're going to get to our bonus segment. We've been talking about a famous artist, famous painter, Pablo Picasso. Alex, are there any paintings that you particularly like?
That's a good question. I am not often one to really go for like visual arts. I think I like things, but to actually like, I don't have like a lot like prints of specific famous art or anything like that. And I'm not really like, I couldn't see like, I'm not one to tattoo myself either, because I'm like, but that means that I would have to come up with something like a design that I like enough to always have on my body.
True.
Artists that I like. That's probably
Even a single painting, Alex.
in a single painting. So one that I think is a neat painting. It's kind of old school. There's a painting called the Fairy Feller's Masterstroke.
Oh, of course.
Which has I only know about because of the Queen song of the same name.
Of the same name, yeah.
And it's very busy and like old style.
Oh yeah, it kind of reminds me of the album artwork, which is for the Fleet Foxes eponymous album. Which is it's a different old school painting. That one we talked about in 2019. It's quite chaotic, and it actually features. It looks like an idyllic country like painting, but also there's just like people dying and
just
somebody's
like,
like
stuff.
boning a dog or something. Like, yeah, it's all weird shit going on.
Trying to remember when the Fairy Feller's Masterstroke was from. It's like, I mean, fairy story. They sing about it in the song too.
It was begun in 1855 and worked on until 1864.
Yeah, so I always think it's kind of cool, those old paintings that are like really busy and then they have all these weird ass details. Like you're saying, like someone is just like getting stabbed in the dick and you're like, what?
Like, holy shit.
Just like somewhere in the background, it's like, where's Waldo? But dick stabbing instead?
Yeah, with just like horrific acts. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh my god.
So those are always fun.
Yeah, good choice.
That's what I'm gonna say.
That's a good choice, Alex, and I'll throw it to you. I'm gonna pick something. I'm just gonna say like Salvador Dali. I've seen some paintings of his. They're pretty sick.
Some like weird stuff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone else because I really don't get into those visual arts that closely.
Yeah, I hear ya. It's definitely a blind spot in my cultural ingestion.
There's some like good comic book art out there. I always liked Fiona Staples' comic book art, but that's not really the same thing.
Not quite the same thing, but definitely worth pointing out. I think that's gonna do it for this bonus segment. If y'all want to hit us up with your hot art recos, hashtag this is my hot art. No, just fucking art reco. Like
reco.
Art Deco, but it's art reco.
Yeah, so
that's the hashtag.
Yep.
Hashtag art reco. Well, that does it for this episode of Cover Me. And as we always say on Cover Me, Pablo Picasso was never called an asshole. Not on Cover Me.